Welcome to the Brave New Wealth podcast, where we discuss optimizing wealth from multiple perspectives, from the mental, physical, social, and financial. I'm your host, Julienna. Bienvenue à tout le monde. Bienvenido a todos. Herzlich willkommen. Everyone is welcome here. In this podcast, we are sponsored by Engineer Tax Services, where I am a director. Engineer Tax Services is a subsidiary of Engineer Tax Advisory. And our goal is to empower business owners, entrepreneurs, CPA advisors with proven expertise, education, innovative strategies to reduce clients' tax burden. In each episode, I bring to you experts in their field who will share their journey with us and their expertise to help you and support you, to help elevate wherever you are today. And today, I am very excited to have with us Kelley Johnson. She is a Chief Transformation Officer at KEIRUS. She has a background spanning from human resources, talent management, corporate communication, and DEIB. She brings a wealth of expertise guiding individuals and organizations. And on the personal level, I had the chance to see her present, and I was very impressed with the knowledge she has, the way she goes about elevating the individuals and the organizations in the leadership area. So Kelley Johnson, thank you so much for coming and having this discussion with me today. I'm really excited to learn more about who you are and what you do. So just to start up in a nutshell, if you had to introduce yourself at an event or in an elevator, what would you tell people you are? Who are you?
Yeah, thank you, Juliana, for having me. And I am honored to speak with you today and your audience. And you're impressive. So for you to call me impressive is a very high compliment. So thank you. If I just had to pick 3 words to describe me, I would say I'm a dreamer, I'm a creator, and I'm a believer. And those 3 qualities go into everything that I do. I love dreaming big, imagining the art of the possible, and I love building. I love creating. I love designing, whether that's content for leadership development programs, whether that's creating teams, whether that's creating solutions for our clients, and then just believing. Because at the end of the day, we have to have some grit and resilience. The work that we do is not easy, and we have to believe that it's possible, and we have to dig deep and find that inner strength to keep moving forward despite challenges.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this beautiful introduction. Already, tells us who you are in a little bit. So before we dig into what you've done and your journey, I'd like to know, what is something you've done lately that was a little bit challenging and that has helped you grow, whether it's mentally, physically, financially, or socially, something that took you out of your comfort zone, but in the end, you were happy to have done it?
Sure. I struggled with thinking about picking just one, because I pride myself on challenging myself every single day. I begin every single day with quiet time to just really be focused on what's important for me today or this week. And I would say recently I hired a consultant, a marketing strategy consultant, to help me think about launching a new program. And it's a little out of my comfort zone. It's not that I haven't done that before, but one of the things that I find, if you're in the entrepreneur club, if you are a business owner or you have a side hustle, whatever, we tend to be very kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I can do it. I can do it all. I tell people I'm the janitor. I am, I'm a marketer. I'm my own HR. You wear so many hats when you run a business. And so I think sometimes we can put ourselves in a trap or keep ourselves in a trap by not reaching out to experts in their field to support the efforts or the ideas that we have. And so I recently hired a marketing strategist to help me really think through customer insights. And again, this is something that, yes, am I capable of doing it? Could I potentially do it? Yes. But I took the risk and I went outside of my comfort zone to say, I need a different perspective. I want someone else gathering these customer insights, and I want someone else's perspective to help me think through, how do I use the insights that I'm gaining? So that's something that I literally just signed the contract a few days ago, and we're already working on some of those early deliverables.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on, realizing, and I'm with you with that. That is something I, talk about. The clients who talk to me every day in our field, it's having a CPA, but he may not be a tax strategist. He may not know about the intricacies of real estate tax incentives. And you do need the people who've dug into it and can really support you so you don't miss out on anything. And that's what you're doing with hiring the expert in their field to help you elevate faster. Like you say, you could do it yourself because you're smart enough, but is it smart to put your time there instead of where, your expertise truly is? So I'm excited for you, and I'm excited to see the results.
Thank you.
But what are some of the things you do that help you refocus and get that energy so you can then show up professionally the way you want to show up?
Sure. So I'm a big believer in kind of the mind, body, spirit connection. And, we talk a lot about self-care, and I kind of don't like that term anymore because I feel like it's used to justify like getting a facial, getting a massage, which those are great and those are important. But I believe that soul care is just as important as self-care. And we have to invest in ourselves inwardly. So it may not even be visible to the natural eye, but what are you reading, right? What are you consuming, or what am I consuming, right, on TV? How much scrolling am I doing on social media? I try to be very intentional about my time, and so that I'm protecting my soul. I am protecting that inward part of myself, because ultimately my health on a soul level is going to influence my body physically. It's going to influence my mental capacity, my cognition. And so to do that, I work out with a trainer. Yes, I do sort of the typical things of what kind of being careful about what I eat 80% of the time, maybe 85 on a good day. I have a big sweet tooth. So unfortunately, sometimes I cave and I give in, but I believe in working out consistently. But for me, my faith is one of the ways that I practice that soul care, and just spending that quiet time every day or most days is one way that I try to balance it all so that I can show up well for my family. And I kind of want to go personal for just a second. A few years ago, I am a mom, and a few years ago, my teenage daughter pointed out to me that on our vacations, I'm on my laptop. And she was very upset, and it broke my heart. Like, I felt like pull the dagger out of my heart. I felt so guilty. And I had to really own up to the fact that she was honest, right? She's like, who takes a laptop to a resort pool? Like, she called me out. And since that time, and I thought, I'm kind of hiding it. I'll just do it when we're like chilling out. We're not really doing any activities. But it was unacceptable to me to have that type of impact on my child. And so I think that it's just so important to really be able to show up well for the people who mean the most to you, and to being intentional about carving out that time so that I can show up for my family, I can show up for my clients, and I can show up for myself.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that you share that. And I can relate, I have 3 teenagers, and I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I have to remind myself, especially when they're teens, because they have their own lives, they run around with their friends. And if I'm not conscientious about when they're with me, I've got to be with them.
That's right.
Time is running out. And I do. And I think the mom guilt will never go away, because it's, at least for me, I think I'm a pretty good mom, but you're never going to be the perfect mom. Right. And so and some people are like, oh, give yourself some props, which I do, but it's something you just have to live with, it's just, but
That's
reminding ourselves that time is short and having that quality time definitely should be a priority because the minutes are counted, the hours are counted, and it's not unlimited. So thank you for sharing this experience. Very important. And we've had discussions before. We met very recently, but I think we had deep discussions passing, and we don't especially have the same type of faith, but I am so with you when it comes to taking care of the soul. And there may be many different versions of that, but I also believe that physical and mental are just intricately connected, and one doesn't go without the other. And I'm with you with, the 80-20 eating. I think being extreme in anything never helps. It's also detrimental. So it's always kind of the game of finding that balance and recentering, remembering that, with one without the other, it doesn't work very well. So taking care of the soul, which to me is the physical and the mental. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love that you brought that up. So
Thank you.
Take us to the beginning of your journey. Like where did you start with your interests, school and work to where you are today? And I know we don't have all day, and I know it's packed. So the challenge is, can you give us a little summary so we have a better understanding of where you came from and where you are today?
Sure. So my degree is actually in business and sociology. And I think at the time I wasn't super intentional about my major. I just sort of I got to a point where it's like, okay, how many credits do I have and what do I need to do to graduate? And so I just picked a degree that would allow me to sort of finish as quickly as possible. But it ended up having this concentration in business and sociology. And in hindsight, it totally makes sense because I am very business and marketing focused, but I also care about people. I care about people's systems and how infrastructure and systems impact people groups. And so looking back over my career, kind of the last 20, 25 years, I started out in advertising and marketing, corporate communications, worked for a couple of boutique ad agencies, eventually went over to work for a global hospitality company where I was the head of corporate communications for North America, US, Canada, Mexico, and I was the liaison to our headquarters in Paris, France. So I loved hearing you speak French earlier. It brought me back to the days of supporting a predominantly French executive team and led corporate communications, internal and external, publicity, crisis communications as well. And around that time, again, I was in the hospitality industry. And so 9/11 happened, which was this massive tragedy, of course. And it decimated our business. No one felt safe to travel, and it was for very legitimate reasons. And yet we knew the impact on our business. And so internally, as a marketing team, we were talking about, okay, how do we recreate this emotional connection with our customers at such a critical time in really the world? And so as I was listening to the conversations we were having internally, it occurred to me that we were missing an ingredient. If we want to create an emotional connection with our customers, we have to understand them. And we have to understand their uniqueness. We need to look at what are the unique needs of various customer segments. Customers are not one size fit all. There is no one customer avatar or customer profile. And I recognized that was missing from our conversations. And so I started to research travel. I started researching different demographic trends and bringing that data forward to help us understand what type of business decisions that we need to make in order to create this emotional connection with our customers, bring revenue back to the business, right? So I started promoting the data that I researched with our general managers at 1,100 hotels across North America. And it became popular. And I thought, okay, great. I'm glad you like it. But that was a big pivotal moment in my career because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I didn't know the impact I was making, but I was really showing the business value of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity of our customer base, diversity of our employee population. How do we tap into them to maximize profitability, to maximize innovation, to maximize customer satisfaction and loyalty? And so it was through that work post 9/11, really wanting to make an impact in my organization, that I leveraged my marketing background to help with creating our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Fast forward many years later, became Chief Diversity Officer of a Fortune 500 company. And 10 years ago, I launched my firm, KEIRUS.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, wonderful. I love how you brought so much value to many different organizations. You discovered something that I know you're not the only one who has seen this, but through your own research and through the data you brought, you were able to show. When you bring facts to the table and numbers, and there's nothing to counter. There are facts, so they don't care about your feelings or what you think. That's the result. And you're not alone. It's interesting because I had a guest coming on who brushed on that topic as well, where he's invested, and it was all about the numbers and the data and what it shows and how it helps the companies, aside from the emotional that people sometimes want to put into it. And then, so then you decided to go on your own because, tell us more.
Yeah, so I was in this Chief Diversity Officer role, had responsibility for talent management programs, led a team that worked with our marketing department, our purchasing department, just really broad-based national strategy. It was a national organization. And it reorged. There was a massive reorganization, a byproduct of the recession around kind of that 2008, 2010 timeframe. And from that, I did some soul searching. I was like, okay, what's next for me? And what can I do? I've always been entrepreneurial. Speaking of kind of women empowerment, my mother, a single mom, raising 4 kids by herself, became an entrepreneur by the time I was in high school. And I saw her journey. I had an amazing role model to see a single mom, become an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur. And so I knew at 16 that one day I wanted to have my own company. I just didn't know what I was going to do. And so when I had an abrupt end to my corporate career, I used that time to just reset, refocus, and I launched KEIRUS in 2015 with the idea that, I wanted to really provide more value within the workplace culture and leadership development space. As a former corporate executive, I hired consultants, I hired vendors. And I wasn't always satisfied with their offerings. And so I thought as a practitioner, now providing services to clients, I have walked in their shoes. I know the challenges that they face, and I've got a track record of success of demonstrating results and impact that I really wanted to help multiple organizations with versus going back into a corporate role where I would help one organization. I really wanted to maximize my reach and scope by being able to be a resource and partner to multiple organizations, multiple industries. And I'm really very humbled and grateful that over the last 10 years, KEIRUS has grown 100% organically, completely referral, word of mouth, and we have supported organizations from Fortune 50 list to mid-size privately held to smaller nonprofit, a couple of governmental agencies, 10 different industries, and we've reached and supported employees in 10 different countries over the last 10 years.
Wonderful. That is exceptional. Thank you for sharing this. And in that line, could you share with us maybe one of the experiences that stands out to you where you were able to see a significant change because of the value that you brought to the organization? And I know you have plenty, you have many, and it's hard to choose. But if you can think of one in particular where you were just baffled with the results.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. So one that comes to mind is a global manufacturing organization who we were brought in to help them come up with a culture strategy for this organization. And what we recognized very quickly is that the team leading this initiative, who would ultimately be responsible for executing and implementing the strategy that we helped them create, that team had some dysfunction that needed to be addressed in order to optimize the results. I love doing strategy design work. It's one of my favorite areas to play. And it totally aligns with that dream, create, and believe inner value and inner aspirations that I have. But I also believe in a strategy in some PowerPoint deck is not going to achieve the top or bottom line results if the health of the team is not where it needs to be. And we sort of shifted the focus. We still completed the strategy, but we were able to convince the leader over that team that we needed to spend some time in some team effectiveness and optimization sessions to really get at root causes around the ways of working that were going to be needed for this team to be successful in the execution of the strategy once it was complete. And so I count that as a success story because I tell clients often that when you work with KEIRUS, there's a few invisible bullet points that you're not going to see on the proposal. And that is the executive coaching. That is the partnership that's going to help you look around the corner and down the street around what could get in the way from us being successful in this strategy. Now, for my quantitative, data-driven individuals who are listening, and I feel you. From a results standpoint, this organization, before we signed the contract, they had negative employee reviews on Glassdoor.com. And within 11 months of us working with them, they received their first positive review around diversity and inclusion in company history on Glassdoor.com. So I just highlight from a kind of a data and results standpoint. And as you know, many people go to Glassdoor not to share positive comments. It's typically used as a vehicle to give people the inside scoop on the not so great qualities of an organization. So within 11 months, that's less than a year, this organization received their first positive review from an employee around diversity and inclusion. Whereas prior to that, there were comments around it being a good old boy organization, and it just was not a positive employee sentiment. So that's one example that I highlight of there is work underneath the work. And when you're evaluating who to partner with, you want to try to understand what else am I getting beyond what's on that proposal, and what are the results and track records of success and progress that this partner can point to that helps me understand what else am I getting beyond the black and white proposal.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this. And yes, that brings joy to see that the hard work yielded in a very positive way. Now, tell us, what are some of your goals for this year? What are some of the things, just so we know how to support you?
So we're really looking at about two to 3 years ago, we launched our own learning management platform called KEIRUS. And on that, we originally built it so that we could deliver our multi-year curriculum to our clients using e-learning. And right now, we're really looking at ways to pivot, optimize how we use the KEIRUS learning management platform, really expanding it potentially to more mid-size organizations where they may not have robust staffing to design and develop employee training, and they want to be able to do it efficiently. And so I feel like KEIRUS, our learning management platform, is a tool that is very flexible that organizations could utilize to assist with employee onboarding as well as employee training to ensure that they're getting the customer satisfaction levels that they want to, that they're finding a systematic way to hold employees accountable to the competencies that are needed within their roles. And so that's something that we're in the early stages of looking at. And I would say a fairly new offering is our transformational leadership curriculum that we have just recently rolled out and are in the early stages of offering to some of our clients. And, we have to level up our leadership competencies and behaviors. And I think that one of the mistakes that organizations often make is not quite balancing the short term against the long term as it relates to talent. I think your listeners are probably accustomed to looking at short and long term goals from a financial perspective, but I really want to challenge everyone to think about your talent decisions also have long-term risk if you focus too much on the short term and keeping things easy or status quo, not addressing that toxic behavior will have hidden costs. And it will also have downstream implications to the ability for your organization to achieve those business and financial objectives. And so transformational leadership training is one of those ways to really level up and elevate leadership capacity.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on those points when you did the presentation at the Girls Cave. Shout out to Krista Metluck, who I hope will come on too. And could you share, I know there is a lot in that curriculum, but maybe a couple of points that are critical if for proper leadership training, something you think everyone should look at?
Yeah. So in our transformational leadership course, we cover the 5 dynamics of being a transformational leader. We break down what does it look like, what are the behaviors, and how do you build the routines and the systems to sustain those results. I have personally attended training where I take a lot of notes and I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. But then I go back to the office the next day and I'm back doing what I used to do. And so with our course, The Power of Transformational Leadership, we help leaders build an individual development plan so that they can identify specific ways they're going to incorporate the 5 dynamics of transformational leadership into their current goals. So a lot of training stays very theoretical, like, oh, you should do this, or this is what good looks like. Within the KEIRUS Power of Transformational Leadership program, we actually work with leaders on a specific goal that they already have. So let's not invent anything. Let's not use a fictitious scenario. Let's talk about the real goals that you're being held accountable to on your performance review. And let's look at how can you incorporate these 5 dynamics of transformational leadership into your requirement, really, to achieve those stated goals. And so I would say those are just some quick highlights and some of the differentiators and the way that we try to make this training really practical and impactful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My wheels are turning because I know how important it is. I've actually kept that little sheet that we got at your presentation. Yay. And I try to keep myself accountable for applying the things that you shared with us. So where can people find you? What is your preferred way of getting in contact with those who need you, who want to try your methods? Yes, tell us. And we will have this in the notes as well so that people know.
Sure. No, thank you. And I love that you are still taking away some things from our brief session a few weeks ago. So I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I would also say our website, KEIRUS by KJE.com, KEIRUS by KJE.com. I am Kelley Johnson is my handle on Instagram. Kelley has an EY in it. And then, of course, I'm also on LinkedIn, Kelley Johnson and KEIRUS by KJE.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am so glad you were able to come this morning, and lots of value, lots of things to think about. I'll make sure, we support you however we can, and I hope you'll come back again.
Yes, I'd love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Brave New Wealth podcast with Kelley Johnson. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure that you go into the show notes to get a hold of her and invite her to share some of her knowledge and expertise with your leadership team. If you enjoyed this episode, let me know in the comments. Leave a like, share with someone you think could benefit from this conversation. This podcast is sponsored by Engineer Tax Services. If you are a real estate investor, a CPA, a business owner with real estate, make sure you reach out to us so we can show you some of the tax incentives that you may have overlooked. We're happy to work with your CPA, just wanting to make sure that you have taken advantage of all of these incentives available to you. I hope you will join me for the next episode. À bientôt.